Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. My name is Jackson Mummy, and each week we'll be bringing you updated information about the bar exam and what you need to do in order to make the next bar exam your last bar exam. Ready to get started? Let's jump to it. Hey, everybody, welcome. It is Wednesday, May 10th. We are glad to have those of you who are on with us live today. If you're watching on replay, glad to have you as well. Tracy is here and June is here and Brianna is just jumping on right now. And we are ready to talk about California bar results. We're going to talk about boot camp. We're going to answer some student questions. And we got a lot of ground to encourage all of you to get on the group coaching calls. I've been doing interviews with successful students this week. And one of the things that comes up consistently is they talk about the value of being on a call with Brianna or being on the call with June or Amanda or Bobka, now with Tracy. And this is a terrific resource. It comes with your course. You should absolutely take advantage of it. I know, Brianna, from your standpoint, as you've been group coaching for a while now, you really see the difference, don't you, when people come to these calls?
Oh, absolutely. It's night and day. Students love these calls, not only for the advice and input they get from us, but also from the other students. It's a great way to stay accountable. It's already offered in your course. Just join. I promise you're going to love it.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what your exam date is. If you're taking the exam in 2024, hop on these calls now. It's great. Sample them, find the coaches you like, find the themes that you like. We've got very different coaches that have very compatible but different approaches to the way they do their calls. And I encourage you to check them all out. There's no limit to what you can do there. In that same vein, I now want to talk about Bootcamp because we are getting close, aren't we? Bootcamp is super exciting, and it's coming up May 19th and 20th. Now, here's the good news. We still have a spot left, and I'm going to let you all in on that today. You can register and get your spot. You can even make payments, and you get in at the lower price. Tonight, that price goes up and it goes out to the public, people that are not registered CPR students, which means that this is really your insider last chance to get a boot camp at a lower price. There is an application fee, which is applied to your tuition, and then you can either pay the balance at a discount or you can make monthly payments. If you're already a photo reader, we're going to deduct from your bootcamp tuition the photo reading course price. So that's another benefit for you. Now, the reason that you ought to come to bootcamp, in my view, when I look at people that passed in February, I've got a whole long list of people that passed their exams that we've seen so far, and they went to boot camps. And I've done interviews with a couple of them, and I just asked these people point blank, was boot camp worth it? And they said, yeah, this made a difference. It was at boot camp, you're going to learn how to photo read or learn how to photo read more effectively if you're already a photo reader. You're going to learn about mind mapping. We're going to do a lot of mind mapping, show you how to do that. You're going to learn how to apply photo reading to essay writing, to multiple choice test taking, and to performance tests. All of that is substantively important. Tracy's going to be working with our students on the mechanics of writing in small breakout sessions. June is going to do what only June can do, which is the mindset fairy godmother coaching. And it is so powerful. June, you should show them your fairy godmother wand that you've got there.
Look, it's got a little bell.
That's just terrifying, but still very helpful. So June's going to do her mindset coaching in the breakout sessions. I'm going to do a lot of one-on-one work with you as well. We kept this boot camp very small, 15 students. When we started doing boot camp in the early years, we had 40 or 50 people. It was great, but that's so many people, it just can't give the kind of attention that we want to give. So this is very small and personal. The other thing is that it's not terribly expensive. You can get Frontier Airlines into Denver from just about any place, very inexpensive airfare if you need to fly in. There are plenty of hotels in the area that are nice and inexpensive. We are basically taking care of your meals on Friday and Saturday. So really very little outside expense for you. And I just can't say this enough. If you are even remotely thinking I just need that extra push to get me over the top. Please come to boot camp. That is the push that you need, and it makes the difference. I think we had 6 or 7 students in this last round of exams who are boot campers who passed. It's just something you should be doing, and this is your last chance today to register for boot camp at the lower price. Again, tonight, we raise the prices. We're going to fill up that last seat, I'm pretty sure, when we go out to the public. Tracy, this is going to be your first boot camp. You excited about it?
Yeah, I think it's going to be great to meet so many of you one-on-one. There's no substitute for personal energy and dedicated time. This is time that you're setting aside that you're not going to be working on your other job. You're not going to be taking care of your children. You're not going to be worried about your parents. You're going to be dedicated on your bar exam journey, and we're going to be dedicated with you. We're not going to have other distractions either. There's so much to be said for that. And the other thing, when I think back to when I took the bar, which was in the last century, way into the last century, I had a study buddy. And that made all the difference in the world to me, just to have connection with one other person, because this can feel like a very lonely journey. And if you can find someone else in the boot camp that you can connect with and stay connected with, that helps for accountability. It helps keep your motivation up. The connections are really important that way. So, yeah, I'm excited to you and to work with you one-on-one.
Yeah. In June, you and I have been doing these boot camps. Seems like forever, but I'm really excited about this. It's a new venue. We have Tracy coming in. We have some guest speakers. We're going to have Zoom in to talk to the group. And look, I don't want to hear I can't afford it. We've made this thing super affordable because we know how important it is. So please don't let that keep you out. One of the people I interviewed, she was a boot camper. She passed the bar. She said, yeah, it cost me some money. She said, what would it have cost me to not, what's the cost there, the opportunity cost? So don't be, foolish about this. Spend a little bit of money and get the assistance and really get in there. So really excited about it. It's first come, first serve.
It's called Bootcamp for a reason. You're like, what can we learn in 2 days? It's very quick. It's very intense, but not overwhelming. The way we lay it out, the way it's broken down. And I'm telling you to watch Jack teach photo reading. So if you have the photo reading course, it's 7 days to learn this thing and to put it in practice. And to see Jackson teach this whole photo reading in a matter of hours, and you to be able to implement that into your studies, that is the biggest time saver you can do. Because if you're spending an hour or two reading outlines or something like that, and you can condense that to 15 to 20 minutes, look at the amount of time you're saving on your study. So there's that. And then we have a special surprise.
That's right.
You ready?
You want to tell them about your surprise?
I am. So one lucky person at Bootcamp. As you guys know, I do a coaching called Calming the Chaos, where we work on your mindset and what is actually stopping you, like in your head, your baggage from past. And we all have something, I guarantee you, we all do. But at Bootcamp, one lucky Bootcamp student, we are going to draw a name, and that person is going to get 4 free calls with me after Bootcamp to hopefully enable them to go further on this journey. Yeah, so there's that.
That's pretty exciting. And yeah, I hope people will take advantage of that. That's a really nice prize to give. I'm not giving away free coaching. So there you go. I was just looking at the list of people on the call today. I see a couple of people that I know are coming to boot camp. I might be missing somebody else, but welcome. We're excited to see you guys here. But listen, if you're thinking about doing it, this thing closes, the door closes, and you're going to miss out if you don't do it right now.
If you have any questions, seriously, like any questions about logistics or hotels or is it safe as a single woman or whatever, by yourself, email me. I have done this event so many times, I know it like the back of my hand. And even though we're not in Florida, we're in Colorado. It's a great area. I've Googled this thing, Children Kingdom Come. I know pretty much where everything is. So just email me and I can get you whatever information you need and we can figure out a way for you to make it happen.
All right. With that, I now have to deliver the bad news about California bar results. I want to talk about these results for a few minutes, and I want to dig in just a bit because California is the largest jurisdiction in the country. They released results last Friday night. Let me give you the first numbers, and then I'll go to Brianna and Tracy for reactions. The overall pass rate in California on this exam was 32.5%. That is down from the previous low of 33.9% from a year ago. So this is a new low. And the pass rate for repeat bar takers was 28%. There were a total of 1,400 people admitted to the bar. I believe California has a population of, I don't know, 20, 30 million people. So 1,400 people being admitted to the bar is pathetic. It frankly means a continuing lack of representation, particularly in, I think, less economically advantaged communities. The test is insanely hard. I did a video this week where I said the grading is either inept or it's cruel or both. I stand by that. The grading makes no sense whatsoever. The press release that the California bar examiners put out, this is a trend, Brianna, you've seen this before. In their press release, they tell you all the other states that are having bad results. So they said, hey, not just us. New York went down 5%. Florida went down 5%. DC went down 3%. Pennsylvania went down 6%. Okay. So what? You guys are the big dogs here. And then the MBE scores went down. Brianna, when you look at these numbers, what's your reaction to them?
It's really just shocking. It's hard to sit here and let them put out press releases about those kind of results and the continuous decline in the results. And at some point, when are we going to stop playing the blame game and really turn around and look at the exam itself, the examiners, the criteria? Let's look at what is going to happen to this profession if we don't have enough attorneys entering every single year. I'm already feeling an enormous amount of pressure. I'm in a smaller community. We're having to maintain client expectations across the board with how fast we can move things. And it's just going to continually get worse. I don't think our students are doing anything wrong. I think, where do we go from here? They've got to do something.
Yeah. One of the interesting numbers in this exam is that there were 71% of the bar takers were repeat bar takers. 71%. That is staggering because what it means is there's this recidivism on this exam that's just overwhelming. We've got some questions that we're going to deal with today as a panel from people saying, what did I do wrong? What do I have to do? And I think Brianna's point is you're not doing anything wrong. We're just dealing with a very difficult environment. And California continues to take this position that they're just not going to let people pass. Functionally, there's no reason for it. And you read the essays and the answers and the questions, and you're like, what the heck is that all? I think that when your first time applicant rate is 45%, when fewer than half of the people taking the exam for the first time pass, and you've got 70% of your applicants that are repeat bar takers, you're just creating this huge body of people who are just churning through the system and not getting there. And I would tell you, if you're in that group, the most important thing to understand is you have to bear down. You've got to put everything into this. Please do not think you can get through this exam with less hours, fewer tools, less help, less coaching. It just doesn't work that way. That's my take on it. You've been around a long time. You've seen this from the bench as well as a practicing attorney, but you've never seen pass rates like this, have you?
No, it's a terrible trend. And it's a trend that makes me question what the bar examiners are really trying to do. What is their goal? Is it to make sure that attorneys are competent to do their work? Or is it some kind of, as you said, way to belittle and to diminish the work that students have done in law school for all these years and also on their bar work close? But this is what I say. I turn this statistic around, and 28% of repeat takers pass. That's 1 out of 4, a little better than 1 out of 4. So what I say to you is you better make sure you're that one. You better make sure you're the one. You can do it, and you can do it with this program, but you have to follow it absolutely, completely. You have to trust it absolutely completely. The people that passed, I watched the interviews, they said to the number. I followed this plan exactly. I didn't deviate from it. And they passed, and several of them had taken the bar more than once before. So just make sure you're the one.
I think that's exactly right. I think the other part of this, just in terms of the statistics, is that you see that the students that came from the unaccredited fixed facility or correspondence or distance learning, their pass rates were 8, 9, 10%. If you're coming from one of those places, you do not have the numbers on your side, but we're on your side and we help those people get through. But you have to do what we're asking you to do. It's not a question of I'm going to cherry pick and I'm going to take this thing, but not this thing. Look, you should be photo reading. You should be mind mapping. You should be writing essays and performance tests. You should be doing the personal writing workshop with Brianna and the time management workshop. You should be getting coaching with Tracy or me in California. If you're in the UBE with Amanda or Brianna, you need to avail yourself of these tools. And again, it goes back to what we were saying about Bootcamp. I know that people say it's expensive. I get that, but we are the most affordable course in America by far, with the most resources that are available to you. And with payment plans, when you think about what it costs you to sit out 6 more months and take the exam, it is a good investment and it's an investment in yourself. And so I just would encourage people, don't give up. Don't be discouraged, although these numbers are very disheartening. I believe that ultimately people that do what Tracy said will pass the exam. And we see that every test. We see people that come to us and we're able to get them through all of these exams. So California numbers certainly are disheartening. It leaves us only with Georgia as the last big jurisdiction to release results. We're still waiting on those. I can tell you that in this past week, we got results from Alaska and Nevada. Alaska had a total of 36 bar takers. So I don't know what that tells you, not much. And the Alaska pass rate was 75%. What does that mean with 39 people? In Nevada, they only had 75 bar takers and a 53% pass rate. So those are the numbers that we have. Georgia will be the last big jurisdiction to come out. We're still expecting New Jersey. I guess that's another big UBE jurisdiction. And we're waiting on Minnesota and a couple of others, but that's basically it. We're pretty well wrapped up at this point around the country. If you have not started your studies for July, why not? This is the time, right? This is when you got to get going. Are there people out there that haven't started?
Yeah, for sure. Get going, guys. Come on.
Come on, let's go.
You just heard the statistic.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let's jump to some student questions. And again, congratulations to everybody that did pass the exam. And if you didn't pass, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. We want to work with you and help you. I want to do a couple of just basic logistics questions we got this week, and then we'll jump to the more interesting ones. One student asked, how much extra is it to jump from California or Florida into the UBE? The answer is, if you're already registered with us, you can pick up a second jurisdiction or change jurisdictions for $495. That's essentially the cost of the licensing fee. But I want to talk about that as a strategy for just a minute. Brianna, I know that we've talked about this before, that sometimes it's better for somebody in a state like Florida, Georgia, California, that's not in the UBE. If they don't have to practice in that specific state, it might make more sense to jump to the UBE. Do you?
I absolutely agree. I took and sailed the Texas bar several times. And before Texas became UBE, we had talked about me switching over to the New Mexico bar. And one of the key things I think students need to remember is that you might feel, maybe students feel a little stuck from getting some of those failing results over and over again. So if you're taking a new test, you get to turn a new leaf and go take a new test in a new place and hopefully look at everything with fresh eyes. So I think it brings a lot of encouragement to students who maybe go and pass the UBE, and then maybe they do want to go be licensed back in Florida, Georgia, other states that are state specific, and they get that boost of encouragement to go do that and that confidence.
Yeah. And there are some advantages. If you get a scaled 136 or better on your multi-state, you can apply that to Florida and not have to sit for that day. after you've been in practice in a state for 4 years, you can skip the multi-state in California. Although in 4 years, I think we're going to see a very different test anyway. There are some advantages to that. The other thing is that it is possible to be licensed in New Mexico and living in California and still do a lot of legal work, right? There's a lot of law jobs out there that don't require you to be a member of that state's bar. So I would encourage you, if you're thinking about that, reach out and let us know. We'll talk with you about it. It is a strategy that we've employed successfully with a lot of people. There's just a point at which, if you start banging your head against these state exams like Florida and California, a change of scenery might do you a lot of good. And, the irony of all that, Brianna, is that then people come into the UB and they blow that score away and they go, whoa, I could get licensed in 40 states. So what do I care about Florida or California at that point? I know that was your case. And okay, here you go. So yeah, why not?
Yes. Nevada had a 50% pass rate.
Yeah.
Right next
Yeah.
door.
Yeah.
Go up to Alaska. So what if they're up to 75% pass rate? Get
Small.
licensed.
Yeah. And sometimes these small test jurisdictions are actually easier to work with because it's not like you get lost in the room. There's thousands of people in the testing centers in California and Florida. Sometimes it's worthwhile to get out of there. Another question we got, I attempted to sign on to the virtual bootcamp. So now one of the advantages of coming to bootcamp is that we will automatically enroll you in our virtual bootcamp, where I've got all the files that I use, all of the materials, lots of extras. We sell virtual bootcamp for $800, but it is included in your bootcamp register. Students said, can I review that online? Yeah, absolutely. You can get into the virtual bootcamp. Now, what we're not doing for this bootcamp is we're not recording this to stream it out. We want you there in person. We want to see you in person. If you are at our live bootcamp, you will get entry into virtual bootcamp afterwards. All right. Now, having done those, let's jump in this question we got during the week. Student said, I'm writing a contracts essay, and I wrote on the governing law. I think what they meant was UC or common law. And I'm so used to writing that, but I wanted to ask if we should address governing law in a contracts essay. I'm going to give my answer, and then I'm going to jump it over to our panel here. My basic approach to this is what's in dispute. If the governing law is in dispute, then you write about it. If it is obvious that you've got two merchants and goods, it's UCC. And there's not really a need to write in an extensive exposition of that. It's really trying to focus on the dispute. Brianna, what's your take on that? I know you're teaching the writing workshop.
Yeah, you already hit on exactly what I was going to point out, which is what is in dispute. We don't teach you guys to memorize whatever the law is verbatim. Instead of focusing on, well, what law do I need to be writing about? I think you have to focus on that dispute and then formulating the law or authority that would help support it. And I think if you take out what law am I writing on and you focus more on the common sense aspect of it, you're going to be writing on all of it. Yeah, focus on those disputes.
Tracy, when you sat on the bench, how did you respond to attorneys that came up and said, Your Honor, I'd like to issue spot and tell you all about the governing law here? You love that, right? It just, let's make a 1-day trial into a 3-day trial.
It's so important when you're writing these essays to get to the heart of the matter and look at the question. Look at the question. If the question says, did breach the contract with, you already know that it's assumed that there's a contract. So you don't have to go through all things about offer, acceptance, consideration, that kind of thing. If the question is, was there a valid contract, then you know you've got to go back and you've got to do the basics of the law. So you want to get the dispute out in front of you, and then what are the pieces of the law that matter in the case? Go to the heart of the matter.
Yeah. It's common sense writing. And if you do that, you don't have enough time to write extra words. So if you're in California and you get a community property question, we don't need the boilerplate paragraph about how California handles community property. Just don't need it. We don't need a discussion of standing when it's not in dispute. There are all of these tropes that we have that really come mostly from habit over the years that don't add much to your writing. Great question. And I would say always use the guiding question, which is what is in dispute?
I would also say, Johnson, I don't know who this student is, but if you're not doing personal coaching and you have this question, this is a perfect signal to you that you should get into personal coaching. And we'll work on these things one on one.
Yeah, it's challenging for us to answer those questions in the broad aspect. We'd like to see your writing. All of us, Amanda, Brianna, Tracy, me, we'd like to see your writing and then talk about it in context. I think that's definitely the better way to do it. All right. We had a couple of questions that kind of came around the same theme this week. A student said, I'm writing to ask you if it's okay to do extra essays not assigned by you on my own. I completed the assigned essays, a student said. I feel I need more practice, so I want to write more essays. This is an interesting question because it's a kind of a mixed bag. There is a part of me that says, yes, definitely write more essays. Glad to have you write more essays. However, and Brianna's heard me say this so many times, it's like practicing the piano. And if you're playing the wrong notes, it doesn't matter how many hours you're practicing, you're still playing the wrong notes. You got to get better. You got to improve and know what you're doing. And so the mere act of writing essays, and I get this a lot with students coming to us from other courses, and they say, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to practice questions. Yeah, it doesn't work that way, does it? So I'm not a big fan of doing extra essays until you're getting the mechanics right. Brianna, I'd like you to talk a little bit about the writing workshop and why we think that's an important piece for people before they start writing a lot of essays.
I love everything that you just said. So what the writing workshop is going to do is give you a 2-part program. First, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about the mechanics that Jackson's talking about, FLA, exactly what we're looking for, your sentence structures, how many sentences in each paragraph, trying to focus on that. And then you're going to get an essay. And at the end of the essay, you're going to submit it to me, and then I'm going to read it. And we're going to have another 30-minute conversation about whether or not you are applying the mechanics properly, what you can do to improve upon your writing. And it's just one-on-one and breaking it down to exactly what you need to be doing every single essay. It's paramount to doing the beginning part and then doing more essays and applying that. So it's great to get some one-on-one advice about the mechanics of FLA.
And those mechanics really make a difference because then we can dig in and get to substance if we know the mechanics are right. Tracy, what's your take on this? Somebody just writing lots of essays out on their own.
Well, I'm wondering how you have time to do that if you're following this class. I don't know how you are. Yeah. I would say the same thing that Brianna said. Take the workshop and get personal help because you don't know if you're hitting the mark.
Yeah, I think it's really important. We set up the personal writing workshop years ago because it was just built on the mechanics. People go through the training, and I think the training is good on how to write, but then they send a piece of writing to one of us and we go, yeah, this isn't FLA. And they're like, oh. So those 2 sessions with Brianna are priceless. Highly encourage you to jump in there. We want you to do enough practice, but we want it to be focused practice. And just wildly doing essays, I think, is less valuable. You should be working with a coach who can help you get through that and show you how to go step by step. We got another interesting question. I do these videos for students when I get the score reports back when they have not been successful. And most of you who have seen your score reports, if you're in a jurisdiction that reports out on the MBE, you see a number that says how you did as a percentile against the national average. That's a tough number to understand. It's not how you did against your own state. It's nationally on the MBE. And what does that number mean? It depends on the jurisdiction you're in. If you're in California, you need to be in the 45th percentile or higher. So you're looking for a number that says 45 or higher. If you're in Florida or New York, you're looking for a number at about 35 to 40%. So the student said, what's the national torts average on the MBE? We don't have a national average. We just know what your scores were and we can extrapolate a little bit. There are 25 questions in each of the 7 topics. In general, to be in the top 60% of the nation, you need to get about 17 of those questions correct. That's the rough number that you're looking for. And so I don't know what you do with that number, but that is the number. So when we see those percentiles, sometimes what we see are really high percentiles in one subject and then really low in another. That is usually a tip off to me that someone is not using selective intuition. They're not trusting that they actually know the material, and they're switching from their conscious back into their non-conscious, back to their conscious brain, and they're getting in trouble. As you practice and prepare for the exam, make sure you watch the selective intuition videos in the course, and make sure you answer questions in 90 seconds, even when that's challenging for you, and it will be. The reality is that in 90 seconds, it forces you out of your conscious brain into your non-conscious. That's all we're doing. At 90 seconds, we're just trying to force you out of the conscious brain. And in practice, then you check your answers. If you're wrong, so what? Doesn't matter. But what you're going to find is you'll get better and better the more you listen to the non-conscious. Brianna, you had that experience, right? It's like suddenly the light bulb comes on at some point, doesn't it? And you're like, oh yeah, I know this and I can answer it.
Yeah, absolutely. It is amazing once you start practicing that selective intuition and just following your gut instinct. But one of the statistics you gave a long time ago just really sunk in within and forced me to think about selective intuition and use it. And basically, it was like you sit there and you go with your gut and you just pick an answer and use your selective intuition. You got about a 70% chance of getting that answer right. And then the
Yeah.
minute you start thinking about it, the minute you start thinking about it, that 70% drops to 30%. It's like this, oh, I am talking myself out of the right answer every single time because I'm overthinking it. You've got to practice it. And once you start practicing it, you actually start having fun hearing these questions. It's like, oh, what else do I know? What else do I know? So start practicing it. It's amazing. And yes, listen to those videos. Absolutely listen to those videos. They're so valuable.
I think so too. All right. So in that vein, I want to now turn to some of the comments we got as people got scores back around the country. One student wrote, and I'm going to paraphrase this. It was their sixth time taking the exam, and they were disappointed, understandably, that the hard work didn't pay off. I did exactly what the course required, but I'm beginning to think hard work has nothing to do with passing. Why am I still having trouble with this? I responded to the student directly in their situation, but I want to make some general comments. And part of this is based on the way that the exam is graded and scored, particularly in California, but we're going to see this in Georgia as well. The examiners get your multi-state scores within a couple of weeks after the test is done. They're scored by machine. The NCBE gives you the score. If your score on the multi-state is not passing in your jurisdiction or close to passing, the examiners know from their data points and their experience that the chances of you having a passing overall total become very small, 0.00 something or 000 something. And in Georgia, they have a very clean way of dealing with it. They just say, we're not going to read your essays. You failed, which is a little frustrating because we never know what your written work looked like. In California, they are required by statute to review your written work. The problem is they don't review it all that carefully if they know you're not going to be on the pass list. And so you get scores on the written work that are not necessarily reflective of the actual work you're doing. And this is frustrating, right? Because you may have good essays and performance tests, but you're getting 50, 55, 60, depending on the question. And one of the things we've noticed in California is that if you're a Cal Bar taker from February, essays 1, 2, and 3, the default scores were 50s and 55s. Essays 4 and 5, the default scores were 55s and 60s. The performance test was 60, was the default score. If you got those scores, essentially, it could have been what your work was, but more likely it's that the examiner gave you about 3 or 4 minutes, did a quick read, and just gave you their default score. And so part of this is you got to be strategic. If you're not seeing success on an exam like California or Georgia in particular, then you absolutely have to focus on your multi-state score. You've got to use selective intuition. You've got to get that score into the passing range so that your written work can be evaluated properly. Now, if you're in a state like Florida, you can pass the MBE or pass Florida. They're graded independently, so there's certainly that option. And in the UBE, it's balanced 50-50. So you need to have a compensatory model. Your writing might be better than your MBE or vice versa. So they're reading more carefully. So again, I think it's important to understand this. But I really want to get to this deeper question of, I'm just disappointed, I'm discouraged, what do I do? And I think the most important thing I can tell you is that when I talk to students who have passed the exam, and I talk to people who have taken it 8, 10, 12, 20 times, it's crazy in that sense. But I ask them, what advice would you give somebody else? What their answer is 100% of the time, don't give up. Don't give up. And I think this is the hard part, is emotionally not giving up. Tracy, I know that you had some cases as an attorney that were heartbreaking losses where you just lost the case. Not a lot of them, obviously, but a few. It's discouraging, but you didn't quit practicing law, did you?
No, you have to learn from those failures and make yourself better the next time. Generally, it's based on preparation and also on getting yourself into tunnel vision. You have to keep a broad perspective when you're studying for the bar. You have to keep your head in all 7 subjects. When you're studying for the MBE, you have to keep your head in process and how to do the writing so that it makes sense and so that it is persuasive. And you can't just focus on one thing. So that's the student that said, should I just keep writing all these essays? Yes, if you had endless amounts of time. And if you're studying for the February bar, maybe you do. But if you're studying for the July bar, you don't have time for that. But it all comes down to preparation.
Yeah, I think it does. And this student said, what should I do next? What are my next steps? My response was 1, come to Bootcamp. 2, make sure you've got photo reading and the other tools. 3, do the personal writing workshop with Brianna. 4, get the coaching with me or Tracy in California so that we can assist you. And then do the Calming the Chaos program with June so that your mindset, your approach is structured properly. There are no shortcuts here. I understand that people would like to find a quick, easy way, but there is no quick, easy way in states like California and Florida right now. Brianna, you want to add anything to that?
I do. I love like everything that y'all are talking about, but I want to talk about one thing that really maybe hasn't been mentioned yet. And you touched on it a little bit, getting the mindset coaching with June.
Yeah.
Part of the reason that this particular student may not be finding success may have completely nothing to do with their abilities to write an essay or answer an MBE question or whatever it may be. It may be entirely on themselves. They may have a roadblock that they have put up on their own accord that is preventing them from believing in themselves or getting that confidence that they can be an attorney. In order to pass this exam, you have to know that you will be an attorney. You have to see yourself in those shoes. You have to believe that you are capable, and accepting that defeat sometimes and getting those failing scores knocks us down so hard sometimes that all we see ourselves as is a failure, which is what happened to me. And then you just tell yourself over and over again, it's enough that I'm doing this, it's enough that I'm doing that. And maybe what this student needs is a different perspective on themselves.
June, you want to comment on that?
I agree with Brianna. Sometimes you need an outside party to let you know how they see you versus your own perspective. Because I guarantee you what I see in you is probably not what, and knowing that can really instill confidence. It can help you get rid of some past bar exam baggage, which is not serving you. It is not serving you. Tracy did an amazing story a few weeks back about carrying a heavy load across the bridge. And sometimes we have to let it go, but sometimes hearing it from someone else enables you to really hear it. I believe confidence and believing in yourself is the biggest part of it.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate all that. I think those are great comments, and it's frustrating. We get that, but let us work with you and let us help figure out where the rough edges are. Could be what Brianna and June were talking about. It could be substance, could be a variety of things. Could be just the way the exam is being scored. In light of that, before we turn, Tracy's going to talk about nostalgia, I think today is her topic. But before we get to that, I want to pick up one last set of questions. We got comments from students who compared their scores on the February 2023 exam to their scores in July of 2022 in whatever jurisdiction they're in. And they'll say things like essay one went up and MBE went down and so on and so forth. I'll just say this very clearly. You cannot compare scores from one exam administration to another. Can't do it. And you definitely can't do it from a July to a February test. Not because the February test is harder. It is not. But because the number of students that are retaking is different, the grading is different, and the result is going to be different in general. And so it doesn't do you any good to say, why did my scores go down on essays here versus there? It's a different exam, different questions. They're being graded differently in many cases. And I think it's not a valuable exercise. That's my take. Brianna, do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. In every instance, your grader is going to be different. So you just you can't compare at all whatsoever.
Yeah. And you really shouldn't. It's just a waste of energy, I think. Though I understand it's seductive and you might want to do. Last question that we got, and the student said, will you review my results with me? And then will you set up a schedule for me for how to study and then track my progress? We do a video for you of your results when I get your score sheet. And you can certainly purchase a coaching call to go over essays or performance tests if you want to do that. And we're glad to do that, but we don't generally review them beyond that. The idea of creating a one-on-one schedule, the way that we do that, if you want to do it, is that you register for Brianna's time management workshop. And in that 30 minutes, you set up a schedule for somebody, don't you?
I absolutely do. You will get an Excel spreadsheet. You will get a sample of a weekly weekly schedule in a Word document that you can manipulate and change. And I will help you set up those benchmarks to make sure that you get done with all of your studies. That's the only way you're going to pass this test is if you get through all the stuff in this program. If you find yourself rushing at the end, you're not setting yourself up for success. So you have to have a game plan every single day, every single week, every single month in order to know if you are on track, exactly what the student says, to get through the material. We will identify all of your distractions and all of your responsibilities and figure out a workable, doable schedule.
Take that
It's the
big
contest.
box. Take that
Yeah.
big box class.
Yeah, there you go. It's really a great resource. And everybody that's been through that workshop with Brianna comes out and goes, whoa, I get it now. So I think that's important. One thing this student asked, and I thought was really good, was what do I do differently this, right? I mean, I'm retaking with your course. What do I do differently? And that's what I put into the videos. That's always interesting when somebody sends that back after I've sent the video saying, here's what you do differently. But I like the concept. We want you to do things differently. If you didn't get the score you needed first time through, then let's figure out where the gaps are and make sure we cover those gaps. It might be more work with MBE. It might be adding photo reading. It might be coming to Bootcamp. There's a variety of different options. We will never say to you, do exactly what you did before. We just won't do that. That's not our philosophy. And I think most of you know that. So I appreciate that the student wanted to know what they should do differently. And that is watch the video from me and that'll have my suggestions. Tracy, we've got a few minutes left here. What you wanted to talk about nostalgia. So let me turn it over to you and talk to us a little bit about that.
We talked a lot today about what happened a few weeks ago when you took the bar and what your results were. And you're back here on this program because you need to take the bar again. So you can either get stuck in that place where you were either in February or July, or you can move forward. And getting stuck in the old exams that you did not pass is a form of nostalgia. Gee, if I had only worn a different color shirt. Gee, if I had only had questions on criminal law, because that's my strong point, and not so much domestic relations, because I don't really understand that. You can get stuck in all the things that happened before. Yet after you take the bar the next time, I hope you get a copy of this book, Brene Brown, Apples of the Heart, because I really think that all young attorneys should read this book before they start working with people. She has some interesting things to say about nostalgia. I just wanted to read you one quote in particular from a historian by the name of Stephanie Kuntz. Memories, like witnesses, do not always tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. We need to cross-examine them, recognizing and accepting the inconsistencies and gaps in those that make us proud and happy, as well as those that cause us pain. When you're thinking about what happened to you in the last bar exam, it's very important that you cross-examine what happened and that you not make excuses and that you not project onto either other people in your life or onto this class or onto the weather that day, but you sit down and you think and you logically figure out, where did I miss out and where can I improve next time by improving my concentration and my dedication. Nostalgia is more likely to be triggered by negative moods, which means that you're going to, if you keep being in this place of self-judgment where you talk yourself down and diminish yourself, no friend, you would never have a friend that talks to you the way you talk to yourself. You never would. But if you get stuck in that place, then it's going to be impossible for you to move forward. And you don't have time to sit there in that place. You've got to get going. Because nostalgia can be a double-edged sword. It can be a tool for connection or for disconnection. I want to tell you about when I grew up in the 1960s, we had some cultural icons that taught us connection as people and as human beings in contact with others. And one of those was the group The Beatles, which you may think is really easy, kind of pedantic words and music, but to us, it was absolutely brilliant. So I wore my Beatles shirt for you today. I want to leave you with this. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be, let it go, put that burden down, and let's move forward together.
Awesome. Thanks. June, that's pretty consistent with what you teach.
I 100% agree with her. And if you come to my group, Mindset Coaching, we talk a lot about the words we say to ourselves. And how do you stop saying negative words to yourself? And the first step is recognizing you do it, because we become so used to our own language, our own words. We don't even fully hear when we do it to ourselves anymore because it's so constant. And when we break that, it really opens us up to a lot of positivity that can come into our life. And I don't always preach a lot about positivity because there's also something called toxic positivity. And positivity only works if you believe and you embody it. That's the difference. Regurgitating memes that make you feel good, not so good. But I 100% agree with Tracy that once you overcome this, because you would not say these things to your best friend or to me or to Brianna or to somebody on the street that you say to yourself. So come to my call and let's work on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all. Very helpful today. You just need to do it. We'll be back in 2 weeks post Bootcamp talking about, at that point, we'll have Georgia results. And we'll be really focused in on the July exam. Encourage you to check out all the resources that we've talked about today. We talked about a lot of them. There are a lot of tools that can help you. And we really want to see you succeed. There's no other bar review in America that offers these kinds of tools for repeat bar takers and really for first-time takers too. Thank you all for being with us. It's been great to see you. Thank you, Tracy, Brianna, June, and everybody have a great study week. It's on now for July. Hey, get going. If you're a February bar taker, just leave you with this. About 5 to 10 hours a week is what we think you should be doing right now for February. It will be here before you know it. So there you go. All right, everybody. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you in 2 weeks, and we'll see some of you live and in person in Denver in 10 days. So look forward to that. Take care. Bye.